Hello everybody. Should be able to see me any second now. Hope everybody's doing okay. Welcome. Tonight is going to be a live stream that I'm essentially doing for my own benefit. On Saturday, this coming Saturday, I've decided I'm going to do an absolutely insane mix session where I'm going to be mixing an entire album in a day. Yeah, I don't know what's possessed me to do this. I've been doing a lot of mixing recently of pop punk, and there was a band that we had on our little record label nearly 10 years ago now called A Poetic Yesterday, APY. I'll call them APY probably quite a lot. And it's one of those things where I wanted to go back. I've been going back a lot recently and remixing old songs that I did a long time ago. And this was probably the first album that I ever produced start to finish in Reaper. As evidenced by the fact that I've still got all the Reaper projects, and they were all recorded in Reaper 3 point something, which I can tell from the dates, which I'll show you. And I'm doing this stream tonight. I am taking all the audio from all 12 of the songs on the album. I'm going to compile them all into a single project. Delete all the old plugins and that kind of thing off it. If anyone's got any questions about what I was using at the time, I'll talk about that. But the aim tonight is I was going to do this anyway on my own time. I mean, this is my own time, but I'm going to be flicking backwards and forwards between a lot of projects and making a single monolithic project with regions and such, and making a nice tidy mix prepped session. So yes, let's run the intro screen, because why not? Yes, so good evening to Marty, my regular viewer. Yes, so this is what I have so far. This is my 2020 kind of master project, and I'll show you as far as I've got. So far, I've finished importing 3 songs out of 12, and there's nothing in here apart from one plugin. There's a re-cue on the master, which is just taking everything down a little and restream so that you can hear what's going on. I don't think I actually need them now. Oh yes, I do. Anyway, it's not going to sound very pretty, that much I can tell you right now. So don't worry too much about the way that things sound, because they're going to sound pretty terrible, and that's because this entire thing is not mixed, this is why this is the preparation for Saturday. I'm gonna have a very busy week. So yes, this is regions that I'm using in Reaper. This didn't come in until Reaper 4, I think. And regions allow me to do things like select an entire area and lag. What do you mean lag? I mean, it looks right on my channel. It looks right on my OBS anyway. I don't know if there's some sort of issue on restream or what, but it seems right. Yeah, I don't know. OBS looks right, so I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, I'm not going to spend any time doing any technical jiggery-pokery, because everything looks right, and like I said, I'm live tonight doing a live stream just to give you guys an insight into what I would do prepping for a mix. So I kind of know this album inside and out, because I'm just going to hide the mixer, because I spent weeks recording this, months even. I can't remember when we started recording the first song. In fact, if I just go to source, we recorded, this is just a file from the song Same Old, Same Old. There's a date, there we go, July 2011. So this was before Reaper 4 came out. Yes. Looks, sounds good. Yep, lovely. And yeah, this some of these are from slightly different times. We recorded this album. Let's have a look at a different song. When was that done? Oh, same day? Oh, these are all consolidated files. So this, so July 2011 was after the album was finished. I don't know what possessed me, but at the end of recording the album, I decided to consolidate all the tracks to a separate folder, so I had a nice clean version, properly edited of every track, which I'm very grateful for. Thank you, past me. So yeah, that was when the album was finished. So the album must be, because we did it over several months, the album's going on 10 years old. It's at least 9 years old, that's for sure. Since the start of the recording anyway, and that's a long time ago. So we've got our drums, which was originally Superior Drummer. For now, just to check everything's right, I've used a copy of Stephen Slate drums. So that I literally just pulled up Stephen Slate Deluxe and pulled up one of the rock kits. That's not for mixing purposes. That's literally just so that I'm getting sound out, so that I know that like the drums are in sync with the rest of the tracks, especially as I port them from one project to another. And then I did go into the mapping and load in a mapping preset for the Roland TD. And that says TD30, but I know that we recorded it with a TD9 as the drum brain. I was using these Joe Becky full-size shells, and the cymbals, I think, were Alesis. I'm struggling to remember now. I think we used the Roland stuff. I'm pretty sure we used the Roland and Joe Becky. We might have borrowed it off Seb, one of our staff members at the time, because I definitely had an Alesis TD, an Alesis something 5, DM5, whatever it was, that had horrible pads that you click, 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 click. And so I think for some of the songs, you'll actually see there's a part that says hi-hat MIDI, and that's there. What that is we had this weird kind of hybrid setup, and I don't remember why, but we used both drum brains. That's right. So we had the Roland TD9, but we also had an Alesis. And they were both recording separately via MIDI, and I was kind of blending them in afterwards. I do not remember why. But I've now got the hi-hat MIDI as a child track, so all the MIDI just gets sent straight through to my main drum thing without any aux sends or anything. Child tracks, what you might call it, folders. Really, really useful for time saving. Then I've got our good old bass track, which is a very clean DI of a Fender Jazz. There's a separate track called Bass Dirt. That's not got anything on right now, but if I open our mixer, that's just a pre-FX send of the bass we have, so we don't actually need two copies of the same bass audio. And any edits we do make will be reflected across both tracks. Perfectly phase coincident, unlike if I had two channels and accidentally edited one and not the other. And I'm just trying to make sure there that everything's nice and clear. I've made a guitar group, and there's going to be quite a few guitars in here. These are all DIs. And you'll see in a minute that I was using lots and lots of copies of Amplitude 3. But yeah, these all sound kind of horrible because they're literally just raw DIs. But the intent is the stream on Saturday. I'm going to run them all through real amps. I've got my JCM 800 and I've got my 5150 underneath the desk. And I've got the 2 Notes Torpedo Cab M with their brand spanking new firmware. I'm really hoping to have Beta 4, because I'm part of the beta program, before Saturday's stream. I'm expecting Saturday to be a long day. If I start streaming at, say, 10 in the morning, I might not be done till 10 at night or even longer. It's going to be a real marathon of a stream. But that's what you get for mixing an entire album in a day. And then, so we've got all those. We've got loads of main vocals. So there's... Hey! Again, these have got no compression or anything on them. One thing that is something I've noticed, and this is something that I've learnt in the past 10 years, is that a lot of these songs had, in fact, they all had Melodyne on the vocals. And what I learnt is old versions of Melodyne would transfer the audio in and would save the audio that it transferred to somewhere completely arbitrary. It was in like the My Documents folder or something. And yeah, I could also send them through acoustic guitar iHearts. Yeah, probably could. It would sound very strange. Be fun though. And yeah, Melodyne, because it put these files in really weird places, they've been lost to the sands of time, which means that I'm going to have to go through again and use Melodyne on every channel of all the vocals of all the songs, which I'll probably do off stream Wednesday night, I think. Like I said, I'm going to have a very busy week. So 3 songs are now in place. There are no effects at all. That's going to be part of the mixing process. But what I was going to do, and what I've started doing here, is song number 4. I've imported all the tracks that I need. I'm just slipping them in place now, and just making sure that all consolidated files just get dropped onto the right track, and then that track that the bass was on can be deleted. So I've put a little green track down here. It's a little like back marker. And so there's 4 distorted guitars on this song number 4. And so what I'm doing, the guitars were called Rich and Gav, and so that's why I've got these Gav 1, Gav 2, and that kind of thing. I'll probably just change the names of those when we come to mixing, but those were the old track names, which I've not corrected for yet. And so I'm moving these to relevant channels, and so that can now go. Not that I necessarily need to be having less and less channels. I mean, Reaper will handle thousands of channels, but what I want is, when it comes to mixing, if I can get the gain staging and everything right, then if I have one really good high gain guitar sound for the first set of distorted guitars on a track, say, I should be able to then transfer that over from song to song, which will save me a lot of time. Thank you to Nomad Yoga Man in chat. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So there's Rich Clean and Chorus. Whole album in a day. Yes, so there's 12 songs on the album. So it's going to be a long day, but oh, there we go. There's 2 channels for clean guitars here, so I can literally just drop them in. But like I've said a few times on the channel, what have I done here? Make sure that those channels are the empty ones. A lot of what mixing is to amateurs and semi-professionals is actually mix preparation, which is the stuff we're doing right now, which is making sure everything's in place and cleanly edited and all that kind of stuff, and properly in tune with Melodyne, all that kind of stuff. That's not mixing per se. I'm gonna put that track there. There we go. That's not mixing. That's something entirely different. Sub bomb, that can go there. That's an effect. Vocals. Let's just move all these up into the vocal folder. Oh, hello. Yeah, there's a lot of vocal tuning's going to be needed on this. So let's move these up. But yeah, it's really interesting already how I'm looking at some of these files and the way that I was working quite a lot when I was 24. wasn't ideal compared to where I am in my mid-30s. I've now learnt things like proper gain staging and half-decent channel naming, using colours to make sure I'm in the right kind of place, which I'll do later on in this stream. So vocals rich, 1 and 2, they can probably go further down. And this is, like I say, this is a very casual stream, so if anyone's got any questions, do fire away, but I am going to be, unfortunately, not the most entertaining host tonight, just because I'm really going to be engrossed in doing this. So where's Rich? There we go. So, vocals rich 2 will keep, vocals rich 1, I'll just move them over and delete. So we're now up to 50, how many tracks? 55 tracks, and then just the green one, which is like my back marker. So this is where it gets fun. So what I've been doing to import new songs. Oh, firstly, let's just check this all still works. So that's going to be a JCM 800 in the end. Pow, pow, pow. Yep. So those drums are still in tune. There's some weird tuning issues on the guitar there, but when you play it all together, it actually kind of works. So I'm making a time selection here, and if I hit Shift and R, that creates me a region, which I can just now rename. The song's called Frown Proud. Oh. And there's a big gap there, which I can just delete. If I select a load of that, I can right-click on my transport and remove contents of selection, moving later items, and that's going to go stunk and just move all that over. And good, that's not messed anything up. So yeah, I was going to do this and kind of pick at it over the week, just off stream, just casually, just sat on the sofa with the missus while she plays Final Fantasy VII Remake. But my schedule this week, which was open, is now not open. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be on a nice long interview call with Warren Hewitt from Produce Like a Pro. We're talking about our new Ultimate Reaper course, which is going to come out very soon. That's hopefully going to go out live on Thursday, I believe, which is really kind of compressing things for me now. And yeah, okay, so that's 4 done. Good. And then I've got to do all the tuning on these vocals and get everything lined up and nice and ready so that if I do all this stuff on Saturday, then it's going to go smoothly, hopefully. So this is where I can go to a new project tab and open one of the old projects. One of my favourite things about Reaper is that I can open, say, a really old version. This is from Reaper 3, and it'll just open it. It'll just work. If I tick open with FX offline as well, which is an extra button here, it won't try and load up a million old effects. It'll just tell me they're offline, but that's because I've told it they're supposed to be offline. And now if I get rid of my mixer for a second, there we go. So I can see. There we go. So, and it's turned off all the old amps, which just for interest's sake, let's just turn a couple of these back on. If I, there we go, right click and hit offline, it'll online them. So here's 2 of the guitars, which were Amplitude's effort at a Mesa triple rectifier, which I can now, looking at them, tell you that I really was finding my way with this kind of stuff. Didn't really know what I was doing. Look at that. The microphone's a U87, a mile back from from the cab. What was that doing? And then it's just got a compressor on it as well. Just by doing that and moving that into a decent position. That suddenly sounds a ton better. And that's just the left side. So let's just solo the left one. Put a tube screamer in front of it. Let's just see how that sounds doubled up. Just all out of interest. I mean, it's going to sound a ton better on Saturday. You can't hear that, can you? Let's just 1 second. Now you should be able to hear it. So that's amplitude in a box. That's the triple rectifier, or at least a kind of an imitation of it that sounds nothing like it. If I went back to the original settings of that, I mean, let's just not. Yeah, so yes, I know there's some delay, and I've just seen someone saying mix isn't coming out. Yeah. Okay, so anywho, what I want to do is I want to hide the mixer for a minute, and there we go. So, where's my drums? So, drums, don't need any of the mix channels, and I need one copy of the bass. Both those guitars there and there. Quiet guitars. Oh yeah, the do-do-do-do-do-do. Very glitchy. Shouldn't be. Okay, so what I did last time, this has got quite a lot of tracks coming on. Hello, Major Prometheus. No, you're not late. This is a very much impromptu stream. This is something that I've thrown together. So there are loads of groups and stuff which are at the end, which is the kind of the way that I was working at one point, but I stopped doing that in preference of folders. It is what, Anna? I know there's at least a 60-second delay between me doing something and it going live. So yeah, you should be able to hear something if I hit play. There we go. Yeah, so you should be able to hear that. And what I want to do is, with all of these tracks, hold down my Alt key and click on the effects. And just get rid. Is this Cubase? No, this is not. Steve, if you have not seen my streams before, I am known for using Reaper. Reaper's kind of my thing. It's glitchy. That could be because there's 2 copies of Restream running at once, maybe. Doesn't matter too much anyway. I'm going to have that definitely sorted out before Saturday's stream. The audio's not really the star of the show today. I mean, there is no show to be a star of today, thankfully. But, yeah. Ooh, Basque. Right, so I've got all these. Not great coming, though. What does that mean? I mean, you're not supposed to be hearing the audio very much. I'm not playing it very much. You're not supposed to be able to hear practically anything. And it's going through voice meter. I wonder what happens if I change my... Oh, I'm not even going to change ACO drivers. That could cause merry hell. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of these tracks over. I'm going to hit save and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to paste them. I'm going to click on my green little back marker track here and try and hit paste, and that should paste all my tracks. It'll take a little while. Play something. Like... Oh, Clippy and doubled. Right, 1 second. It's like the audio's being gated every 200 milliseconds. Right, okay, that narrows it down a bit. I'm going to go back to the Arturia driver. Let me know if that's fixed it. Because if that's fixed it, that's great. Just change that. There we go. Also see if that... Oh, no, that's definitely... Close voice meter and see if that... It's definitely not a buffer size thing. I can tell you that. My setup is far too complex for my own good. I'm going from Reaper through voice meter through all sorts of stuff. Still the same. How about if I disable that? Is that going local broadcast? There we go. I mean, that shouldn't sound very nice. It should be all direct DI guitars. But, I mean, from what I see on my screen, it looks right. So there's no logical reason for it not to be now, which is really weird. Anyway, I'm going to copy all these channels over to here. And what's going to happen is that's going to plop all the audio in the wrong place, which is really quite annoying. So I'm going to delete all the audio out of them. Restream and voice meter both to OBS. Well, I've now just closed voice meter. It's not open anymore at all. So that shouldn't be the issue. Okay. Anyway, I've got all my tracks here now. That's really weird that it's anything other than literally what you are being sent, because there's a single filter in OBS, which is restream, that is receiving from default. This is sending to default, and the one in that project isn't on at all. I do not know what it could be. Let's have a look at the audio fuse control center and see if I've screwed anything up there. Because I can hear myself, but... Well, I could definitely test this by stopping the stream. This was supposed to be a bit of a chill out stream. Yeah, I must be on a big delay here because you're saying check the audio fuse. I literally just did that. Could the interface need a restart? Well, but what I'm hearing is fine. So it makes very little sense. It makes even less sense that my voice is absolutely fine. Let's try going back to something slightly different, which is take off Restream entirely and use Voice Meter again. Because Voice Meter, if that works for me, and if I can hear myself out of Voice Meter, I can send that to you. How's that? Right, well, that's got it. Okay. Oh, right, one second. You can hear me doubled. I can fix that. There we go. Okay, so you can hear by me muting that. Yeah. I don't need an entire like backwards and forwards on everything, guys. Thanks. I can see it. So, anyway. Bit of white noise. Yeah, that's what happens when you hear my my microphone without a noise gate. That white noise is actually my laptop struggling. So, anyway. Onward. So, what BPM was this? So, this is where it gets interesting. So the song we decided was 210 RPM, BPM even, which means it was actually 105, but we got the click going in 8s because the drummer wanted 8s. So if I go to my 2020 project and go Shift C, that can insert a tempo marker at a new bar. So I can make, after track 4, I can add a new tempo marker. And what I'm going to do, hit save. I'm going to, now I've made all these tracks in my project, so I've got loads of tracks going on. I am going to select everything. I'm going to hit snap, and actually I'm going to just cut that drum MIDI right there to start at the very start of a bar. And I'm going to copy everything from there to a new bar, starting with that track. And that should paste everything in place. Perfect. Now, I can't hear any of that. Why not? Because none of it's being sent out of master outputs because of the way that it was all set originally. You look at these tiny little icons down here. These are your I/O. So you've got your master, your sends, and your receives, which will light up. So if it's going out of master output, it's blue. If it's sending somewhere, it's got a yellow strip. And if it's receiving, I think it's a green strip. Oh, so it's kind of green, blue. Then it's got a yellow. Then it's a very blue. So if I alt-click on that, that's a way to very quickly turn on and off the master sends, which if I just click them all, and I'm doing it one by one rather than selecting, so I'm going to select the rest of them and just turn them all on. I should hear something. There we go. So, no longer on 13. Right, so now that's all done. Oh boy, that was a pain, wasn't it? So that sub bomb, that's not part of this track. So that reverse symbol, I don't know why that's called Basque. I'm gonna call that reverse symbol. Reverse symbol. There we go. So we've got drums, which was originally called drums/kick because the way that I had them routed originally was that everything had its own output, except for some reason I had not realised that you can turn off the master send, and I had the kick drum level on the master and was sending everything else out separately, which is a really strange way of doing it, I now realise. Bam, 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 bam. There we go. So when all of these DIs are in place, they're all going to be mono. They're all going to be at 0 dB. That's the idea, at least. Because that way, if I can make sure everything's at 0 dB unity and get the levels relatively loud, when they then get sent to the respective amps that they get sent, we're going to get a reasonable signal to noise ratio. One of our biggest enemies, especially with high gain amp sounds, is noise. So the louder a signal you can send, the lower a noise floor you inherently get, which means you are winning. So the drums are in place. We have some amount of victory. Now the bass goes in place. Bass in the place, London. And so on and so forth. Now I'm going to zoom in. I can see that this bass was tracked a lot less loud than the others. There's some real inconsistency here on my part. So I'm going to make sure that these all look relatively similar in terms of the general kind of overall RMS value of what's being played. I know some of these have got some really big smacks in there. That's when Ryan, the bass player, was really smashing the string, and it would catch on the pickup. So you'd get a definite click. But running this through an amp or an amp sim either will flatten that transient out and make that not an issue in the mix. It becomes a genuine part of the performance rather than, a problem. So there we go. So we can hear our nice, not too loud drums. Dum dum. There we go. And yeah, that white noise in the background is my missus with a Hoover. So let's start putting these guitars in. So that's the rich guitars, which I will be trying to keep these roughly the same before I call them guitar 1 and 2, because the two guitarists did have very different playing styles from each other, and I actually quite like the way that Rich played. He was more of a technical guitarist. He could do some of the that kind of stuff. He could really make that stand out, whereas Gavin, the frontman, the singer, was a good showman, but he took up playing guitar after another guitarist left. He was always the one who was more the singer, so his guitar parts have a bit more rough and readiness about them, so I just have to treat them slightly differently. So let's get there's rich, clean, and rich dirt. So there's clean, yep, so they can go on the clean channels. There we go, so those two channels can go. This is more about organization and consolidation for me. So we've got the the dirt channels, that's right. So that's bring the volume up on them. There we go. So yeah, they need considerably more gain, but they are supposed to have some amount of breakup on a relatively clean tone, which is fine by me, because that means that when I've reamped all the really heavy tracks, I'll then go back to probably the JCM 800's a really good one for that, and take the booster off, back the preamp volume down, start to get that kind of thing where it's with that's the heavy guitars, he says. So there we go. That's the kind of thing where I'm going to have to go through and make sure they're all mono, so that's going to sound less nice to us, but mono means that you're not going to get that decibel drop before being sent out for reamping. So again, noise ratio, make sure that's all nice. And then there's so there's a very similar part, which I think when we were tracking the album, I can't remember if this was because they originally had two guitarists and one of them played that, and I don't know. But yeah, there is a quiet guitar, which is, it's just it's a relatively heavy, but not metal heavy single guitar underneath, just pins down the quieter section of that song, which I thought was really nice. Oh, so there are supposed to be two quiet guitars. One didn't move up for some reason. Let's put them on the Gavin channels. There we go. Again, consolidation. There we go. Save. How many? Right, so I've got 5 gang vocals. They're simple enough because I've got 5 gang vocal tracks already from some of the other tracks. That was one of my things I was doing back in 2011, which I still do now actually, is you want big gang vocals, you do several takes, layer them up with 4 or 5 people, so that you've got that focus, but then you can just multiply the size out and then pan them over the stereo field, so you get this kind of so you get a nice big effect before you've even done any kind of processing. And then how many? Why have I got all these? wasn't screaming at your whispering. What do I prefer, miking an amp or using VSTs? I've always preferred miking an amp, but I'm quite pragmatic. It really is about what you've got at the time. So back 10 years ago, I didn't have a single thing. I didn't have a single decent amp. I had some like Marshall valve state thing, and didn't have anything that you consider decent. And I figured at the time that I could get better sounds out of stuff like Amplitube, which I probably did get better sounds, but better's very relative, you know. Some of the cleaner or slightly broken up sounds were actually quite nice. The heavy sounds didn't add up, but we were really trying to aim for a high bar with 10 years ago's premium amp models, you know, compared to premium now, which is like Axe FX and Kemper and that kind of stuff. They weren't really out 10 years ago, and if they were out, we sure as hell couldn't afford them. So, although I have to say some of the recent VST stuff is really, really good. But I, whenever possible, do like to use real amps. I just, especially real amp heads, just give me a certain something that models just don't do, or at least some of the nice ones do if you have them just right. But I don't know, there's just something about, it's not simple either getting good sounds out of real amps. I just like it. 2 mics or just the one? Depends, but almost always 2. Almost always a mix of something like an SM57 or an Audix i5 or something like that. And if I need a bright sound, a Sennheiser 421, or if I want a thicker, chunkier sound, a ribbon mic. Like I've got an SE Voodoo VR1 ribbon, which is really nice. I did have one from what they called Extinct Audio in the UK, which is very similar to a Royer 121. I've been talking to Royer about maybe doing something with them as well. But yeah, almost always 2 mics for me. It gives me a very 3D kind of sound. Because of things like phase interplay, where because the 2 capsules are different, even if they were in the exact same spot, which is physically impossible, the capsules in the mics weigh different amounts, they respond differently, the way they react is, on a nanosecond to nanosecond basis, slightly subtly different, and that gives you a very different result when combined to just using one microphone. And the subtle phase cancellations and additions, especially when you then have that on one side and another guitar on the other side, that to me is what gives you that big 3D thing that is very hard to put your finger on. But big name albums always tend to have these guitars that sound like they're around you and surrounding you and enveloping you. It's partly to do with speaker excursion that's slightly non-linear, with 2 microphones that are reacting with each other on each side, which makes that phase response slightly non-linear, just makes things not able to have a static position in the stereo field, which comes across as movement, which comes across as big sounding guitars. So yes, I'll be doing something like that. I've got the 2 Notes Torpedo Cab M, and I've got a Torpedo Captor with me, which I'm going to be using for the mix. And the new firmware for the Cab M, which has 2 microphone support, but also has some new stuff about non-linear, big, thick, organic kind of sounds close enough to me that it's really quite pleasing, especially with a real tube amp that's being pushed, that's giving me the other side of it, which is the again, second to second slight non-linearities when they really get pushed, it just gives me a certain something that makes me smile. Where's the second set of choruses? And what? Oh, that's just the bass again. Back to this one.
Screaming out your well spread.
So, track your guitars from a Helix, stereo for amps and effects, and mono dry track. If you send me a mix to do, would I reamp the dry track? Depends on the guitar sound. I'd have to listen to them and just decide whether I think they're going to work. And I have to try and be dispassionate at that point a little bit and just listen and go, is this guitar tone that I've been sent going to work in context of the song that I've been sent, or can I do better? Can I be more appropriate with what I have? If the answer is you have a very specific guitar sound and you've already gotten it, then there's no point in me chasing trying to get a better sound. Whereas, like, I don't know, if you get, I mean, this is something that's happened to me where I've had a guitarist who sent me rhythm tracks that are really, 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 like, mid-heavy but compressed to the point where the wave file's just a block. And no amount of mixing would have brought that back to life, so I got the DIs and then ran that through a JCM 800. But then I've also been sent tracks where the guitars, without any mixing on, sound exactly how I would have done it, or at least, even if not how I would have done it, sounds right. And so from there, I can just go to work. That's a very, very per case basis thing. I have no set rule over things like that. It's the kind of thing where, like, I don't know, if you've got a song where you've used the Helix and used the JCM and a nice impulse response, not too much reverb, not too much delay, well, that's another thing. I do tend to reamp when a guitarist uses post effects quite heavily, because there's no way to undo that in a mix and clear up. So yeah, if it's all nice and cleanly tracked, then I'm usually quite happy to use it. Yeah, very often guitarists will send me tracks that have tons of reverb and delay on them, whether it's a solo track or whether it's a rhythm track. There's nothing we can do with that. If the reverb is too much, then you end up trying to EQ it out, and that then sacrifices some of the main guitar tone, and there's no good way of doing that because it's just a wall of sound. I would much rather add things like reverb and delay myself on a separate send. That way, if there's too much, then yeah, if there's too much of it, I can just back it down. And too much is relative, of course, but having the choice just on a fader is very powerful as a mix engineer, because it means that, like, if you're doing something like a big 80s hair metal song, you probably still don't need as much of that big reverb as you thought, especially in, like, the verses where it all drops down. You probably don't need as much as you thought, or if you do, you probably need much more of an EQ sculpt on it, yeah. But do you prefer having the option of the dry every time? if ever I'm sent a mix, I plead, I beg for the original DIs every time. Even if I'm not going to use them, I quite often use them as a sidechain for gates as well, because if I've got a super clean original dry guitar and I've got a really heavy amp sound, I can gate that really cleanly by using the original DI as a sidechain. And then I don't get any of this whoop, whoop, whoop stuff, and I can get a very natural, very clean guitar gate. So suddenly the guitars can sound much cleaner, even if they were the sound that I kind of wanted in the first place, which is, yeah. So, one more question. Would I ever recommend recording straight from a multi-FX unit? What do you mean? I'll come back to that one, because I'm not sure what you mean there. This is missing some vocals. New project tab. Let's just open the movie 2020. I must have at some point gone back to this. I can't remember why. I mean, do you mean like a Boss multi-effects unit, or that kind of like something like that? Because no, absolutely not. That is not something I would ever do. I don't know where those vocals have gone, but I'll just have to copy paste them. I think they might have been one of the very, very rare times that I copy pasted anyway. I'm just gonna cut them there at the start of that bar. But it's these two chorus vocals here. And there's automation everywhere. I'm going to just click on these cogs and clear these envelopes. Would I record from like a Boss multi-effects or something? Never, ever, ever, ever. They've got far too poor a signal to noise ratio for me. And I do tend to find that, yeah, straight from a Boss GT8, no. No, I'd get a DI box before that and record that looped through before your effects and record 2 channels. Record the cleanest DI you can and whatever sound you like separately. They're not the same thing, because as soon as you've been through the processing in that pedal, even if it's a dry version, there's a very high chance that you're adding a possibility of noise and just poor conversion. Poor conversion as compared to 2020's finest, at least, you know. It's all relative, of course, but yeah, for the sake of a half decent DI box, yeah, no, I wouldn't. It depends though. Like, I've worked with bands where they've got a specific, like, I don't know, chorus or whatever that they've developed in an effects pedal that's then supposed to go into an amp, and if they record that as the DI, that can work as long as it's not got the actual amp model on it, and that's worked for me before. But yeah, there is some definite personal preference going on. What was the small DI brand that I recommended in an earlier video? Let me try and fish one out. 1 second. There we go. They were Orchid Electronics. These were really, really good. They're about £25 each. And they are on par with something like a Radial J48. And, I mean, that's what Sound on Sound have said about them. They don't have a through, though. That's the only downside if you're recording using something that needs a loop. They don't have that as a feature. Although I think that Orchid Electronics make a version that has a through. But it's a little more expensive. It's like £40 or something like that. The way that I was recording, I was using these 2 DI boxes when I was doing the iPad mix. Was that yesterday? Day before? I don't know what day it is anymore. I have lost track. And yeah, I was running the Sono for the iPad and then running that into those 2 DI boxes, clean as a whistle. Absolutely no coloration of any kind, and that's been great. So yes, one thing to keep in mind with Orchid, I'm just going to copy these over. I don't Yeah, so that's where they're supposed to be. I think that's the only time I ever cut and pasted. I very, 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 very rarely do that. I hate copy and pasting. Yeah, so I don't know any retailers that sell Orchid. I just went to their website and emailed them and said, "Hi, I've heard these are really good. Can I have them?" And they got back to me next day with, "Yeah, okay, here's an invoice, money please." And yeah, sorted that. And that was nice and easy. So, new verse 1. Right, so it looks like there's a lot going on. The vocals were always quite thickly layered here. Right, so those were supposed to be deleted in favor of delete. Yes, I know. In favor of those. So that's a scream vocal, so that's easy. That can literally just go up to the vocals. There was one that's called Scream already, so they can just go on that, because I'm gonna have the same vocal scream sound through the album, hopefully. Let's have a look. I'm probably gonna go through later on to the vocals as a group and trim them down a bit, because there's far too many vocal channels in total. So they should probably be, I mean, I've got so many vocal channels, they can probably go there, which means those two can go. Would I also record VST synths with the internal effects like reverb off and add it in the mix? Good question. Usually no, actually. Depends on the synth. If I don't tend to use many synths that have very heavy inbuilt effects, or at least I don't like patches that have very heavy inbuilt effects. Quite often I'll use something like a Mellotron or something that's got a bit of a room reverb or a bit of something, a bit of delay going on. I tend to like that, but I don't tend to turn that off, because here's the crux of it. I have full control. Because it's not baked down, it's not permanent. Although, having said that, when I get to the end of a mix and I consolidate it, I might. But generally speaking, if I have full control, I'm not that bothered about having it as a send. Very often, I will have my reverbs and delays at the end of a project, and I will send things like synths to them anyway. But if they have a little bit of like character reverb or delay or whatever, I don't tend to get rid of it, as long as it's not masking anything in the mix, as long as it's not causing any clouding of the perceptions. Right, so let's move these up, because there's a lot going on. This particular song has a lot of call and response stuff. So let's just move these down onto vocal 1. Get rid of those tracks. And then ooh. Okay, so that's supposed to have loads of echo on it. They're not supposed to be in a group either. I don't know how or why I've done that. Yeah, I've accidentally dropped them in as a group. That's absolutely fine. So, that's vocal 1. Vocal chorus 2. I'm just going to drop them on that chorus 1 there. What's mic gav 2?
Yeah. Until the end.
So that's
Your voice is screaming out your whispering.
so that's chorus 1. That's that fixed. Off you go. Then there's an extra one that's got loads of echo there. I'll have to kind of tease the vocals out a little bit as we go, but this is still saving me a lot of time. Oh, there we go. So I can now see guitars, bass, drums, vocals. So let's have this. Greetings, Mr. Bommel, sir. If anyone has some time this evening, by the way, and hasn't already done so, Mr. Bommel is doing a questionnaire for a study at the moment, and let's call this the movie. And I have taken the time to fill it in, and it's one of those things that will go a long way to helping him out. So if you want to drop that link in the chat, I'll make sure that gets seen, and then if anybody would mind helping out, that would be amazing. Right, so okay, so that's 5 out of 12. I do remember this one having a particular beep, beep, which I'll have to try and find that, because that was a big thing. Where is it? Movie intro? Right, so I'm going to have to drop this in, so call it movie intro. And this is something that we came up with as a separate thing, kind of a sound design. Where's the movie now? Right, so that's supposed to be inside the track. So that should be. Let's turn snap off for a second. Right, so that should be there. Right, so this is how the song's supposed to start. Is the drums are supposed to fade in. Projector sound starting. Film reel rolling. Beep. Beep. I'm glad that got mixed down as a separate WAV file. Okay, so that's another one down. Next one. Here's to you. Now this song, Here's to You, this is going to be an interesting one because it's only got a few tracks going on, and if I remember rightly, it's a single take. So, Oh, that's weird. It's opened a second Reaper instance. That was not what I wanted. Let's hit the no button. Oops. That was weird. So Here's to You is an acoustic song that we did. Oh. No. What? Oh yeah. So that was the DI from it. It sounds really thin from that guitar, but it was actually a Yamaha guitar that we had bought about the cheapest guitar possible. We'd taken it to festivals, we'd set it on fire, and it was a passive guitar, so that's literally just the pizzo pickup with no preamp. And then that, I'll bring the level up on, was a Seymour Duncan Woody. Yeah. And then there was there we go. So there was that, which was an MXL V67. And there was the quietest signal ever. I don't know why that's so quiet, but that's an SM7B. It's actually not bad considering it's 30 dB off. More gain.
Take your time, waste it all on mine. 'Cause when secrets come home, so do I. So do
There we go. Yeah, so it's one acoustic guitar recorded with two mics and a DI and a pickup. And I remember that we blended them in such a way. Definitely used more than this. I don't know why everything seems to have gone here. But we definitely had amplitude on the case on, I think it was on the pickup, which was giving us a nice chorus effect. Very gentle, very subtle. And in fact, I'm going to pull in, just to show you, the actual track. Because I've got the renders here somewhere from the... Yeah, there we go. Got the renders here from the actual advanced copy of the album that we released. So this is the sound we ended up with.
sentence served or spoke, I'll sing to you. And spending time apart for us is nothing new. As this light's fading out, the sun burns out, and here's to you. Every single.
So yeah, it was really quite a nice song. And it was all done. I think we set up, we got it all right, did it in one take. I hope the... Perfect. That little breath there, that set the tone for the whole song, and that was just captured. He he didn't really want to do this song because it was very personal. And so we got it all set up. We kind of settled him in and hit record and just went, off you go. And he went. And it just, by the end of it, we were all looking at each other going, well, that's going on the album. So, yeah, it's one of those interesting moments where we just went, wow, right, okay. So let's just copy these, click my green back marker and add 5 new tracks. These can just be moved. These don't need any tempo matching or anything crazy like that. Hopefully they're all playing, but yeah, they're all playing back at real time, which is good. So that's Here's to You. That's Region. Here's apostrophe. Okay. So that's our little kind of Green Day moment in the middle before we get onto the heavy stuff, because this is where it gets fun. This is where we get to meet a man called William Bill Cooper. New project tab. Make sure that's all saved. Now, open project, William Bill Cooper. What? Okay, this is an interesting turn of events. Oh. The actual project for William Bill Cooper has not transpired. Huh. This could be interesting. Let's just see what happens if I just drop all the files in on separate tracks. See if they're all just... See if they're all in time. Nope. Well, this is going to be fun. Oh boy. This one's going to take a little bit of work then. Oh, the drums aren't there. Crap. Crap. Ex Cathedra. Please. Why? Half the tracks are missing. This is weird. Half the stuff's missing for Takedown. ST's there. Rise and Fall of a Hometown Hero. Please tell me you're there. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we have some sort of development. Yeah. This is going to be interesting. William Bill Cooper. I might have to mix a couple of these just from the stems. Oh, that's a shame. I've got a folder full of stuff. I've got stems of every song, which is good, because that's something. Because I've got, if I just drop these in here, separate tracks, and oh, they were just peak files, right? Okay, that's fine. So I just solo that. This could be interesting.
Save me as you flow through chaos.
This has just made my life a little more difficult. Oh dear.
As you buy and you're sold, as you do what you're told, as time flies, as your world dries, he warned you. Save me as you float away.
Okay, so
As you float through chemtrails, as your daughter inhales, he warned you.
let's make another new project tab and see what we do have. Because it's the kind of thing where if I can restore most of it, apart from, say, the drums, I'm doing okay. It's not quite the same, but, you know. APY Cooper.
Yourself, your agenda, your mission.
Well, that wave file's got nothing in it, so that's okay.
Things.
And that's the man himself. So let's drop in. So I've got the bass. Right, we're done. That's all we really need. Ooh, stereo clean. So that's right. So we had this stereo clean guitar that was actually just a mono clean guitar, and I'd put stereo effects on it. Look at the wave files, it's perfectly mono. Right, so let's have a look at distorted right. Right, let's bring in the drums. That'll be a good guideline for us, and it's the one that we definitely need because it's the only one that we don't have anything for because we're missing the MIDI. Oh, I said all of you move. There. Like having the master track on the right. So master on the right. The right side of the mixer. Oh yeah, if you've got a new project and you've got everything exactly where you like it, you can go to project templates, save as project template, and then there should be in project templates, just I think you just call it default. Project templates. I'm just going to call it that because this is going to leave everything here in my default project. Might have been underscore default or something like that. But yeah, that will then load your project template as default. Definitely look on the Reaper manual, but I know that making a template there is a name for it. It might be underscore default, that then makes whatever you've set come up as the default whenever you make a new project. Also in project settings, there's a button that saves as default project settings, but I don't think that affects what you're asking. I personally have always just left things on default, so yeah, whatever works for you, I guess. Okay, more emails. Ooh. Okay, so Rich Clean. Oh, that's ba-da-da-da-da. So I'm literally reconstructing this track. Right, so the solo goes over here somewhere. Ah, yes, so that goes there, I think. So I've got Gav Clean consolidated. Oh, blimey, I've got to add all these in. This is going to take me a little while. How does this go? Oh, I know exactly where this goes. That goes over here. So this goes, save me. Tick, tick, tick. As so that needs a lot more gain. 1, 2, 3, stop. Oh, no, I didn't want to copy them all over, but never mind. So I've got Gav, L and R, which hopefully started at the same time. Separate tracks. Where do you go? And this is why you do mix prep, because when I've done all this, I will be really kind of fed up of these songs and I'll be in no mood to be listening for mix stuff. Whereas if I've got all this down and sorted before we even start mixing, I can mix with a clear head. So that's all the distorted-y stuff. Gav Chunk. Right, so that's... I remember that. Somewhere, probably over here. Yeah. Sugar. So it's literally a guitar that goes 1, 2, chugga, and just was supposed to be an overlay of extra chugga to really kind of hammer home that brutal chugga kind of thing. So I've got consolidated vocals, and then I've got. I don't think that's got anything in this. There is a consolidated track of Mr. Cooper himself giving us a little speech over that chugga section.
I've learned some things, and I think these things need to be passed on to you. And I think you need to start examining yourself, your agenda, your mission. Who are you? What are you about? What do you believe about America? Is it true? Are you helping to divide us more? Or are you helping to bring us together? Do you really understand what this country is all about? Do you understand what this country is all about?
I think that's it.
I've learned some things, and I think these things need to be passed on to you. And I think you need to start examining.
Now that's a bit of a silly question. Only a laptop enough to produce music or MIDI keyboard and other equipment are ultra necessary. That depends entirely on what you want to do. I mean, do you want to play things? MIDI keyboard is not necessary if you're not going to be playing. It might save you some time if you can play things in faster than you could program them in with a mouse. What are your strengths? Do you play? If not, you don't need one. I mean, a laptop's perfectly fine for... I mean, hell, I was mixing on a Raspberry Pi for the hell of it a few weeks ago. I was mixing on an iPad a couple of days ago. $20 from James Riley. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for the videos on the RME PCI card. Well, thank you, sir. That really helps. I mean, that's a massive... That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm glad I did the stream now. As you can see, we are struggling with pulling a song back together that I don't actually have the original Reaper project for, which is a massive pain. But I've got consolidated audio files apart from the drums, which I've actually had to pull from the rendered stems for the drums. So this is going to be an interesting one when we get to this, because this I've only got, unless I do some real digging on the oldest hard drives, I don't think I've got the MIDI for it then. You can play MIDI keyboard but can't afford it. Well, what do you need it for? Only you can answer these questions. What do you need a MIDI keyboard for, and is not having one holding you back? If not having one is holding you back because your production revolves around things you play, then of course you need to save up and get one. If your production style is recording real instruments that other people have, then what do you need a keyboard for? If you're occasionally adding in a chord here and there, you know, you can put those in with a mouse. It's yeah, and you can find really cheap MIDI keyboards. Depending on where you are, you can probably find a 2-octave keyboard, a USB MIDI one for, I don't know, £20, whatever that works out to you in your local currency. It's not as expensive as you think it is, unless you want the best. And then when you want the best, why? Why do you want the best? And the answer, well, it will give me the best sound, is not the right answer, because that's not true, because things like MIDI keyboards don't change the sound. You change the sound with your mixing and your skills. So, click back on this.
I've learned some things.
I think it's boom. I think it's boom.
I've learned some things, and I think these things need to be passed on to you.
I'm going to pull up the original mix, or at least, William Burrell Cooper. And just solo it and turn it down because it's going to be loud.
And I think you need to start examining yourself, some things.
Right, so it's on the second chord. We go bound.
I've learned some things. I've learned some things. And I think these things need to be passed on to you. And I think you need to start examining yourself, your agenda, your mission. Who are you? What are you about? What do you believe about America? Is it true? Are you helping to divide us more? Or are you helping to bring us together? Do you really understand what this country is all about?
Right. Yeah, cool. Now we're getting somewhere. Now, where was I with pulling these files together? William Bell. Vocals. Vocals are the only thing I had left. That's all I got left, man. So I'm going to pull in vocal 1, 2, 3, and 4. Not the consolidated parts. And just hope that they are all synced up. They might be. They are not. Right, so that's back into the left, is it?
To bring us together.
So that's given me a marker.
Country is all about. Country is all about.
So that's the first.
Save me!
So that's the first chorus. So that's there.
Save me! Save me!
Oh, that might be the final. There we go, the final chorus. Because this is a proper screamy vocal on this one. Okay, what are you?
As you float through chemtrails, you die. Save me. Save me. Save me. As you float through chemtrails.
And then what's vocal 4? Why is that?
Save me. Float away.
Ah, right, so
Save me.
that's for the very end. So they go, save me, save me.
Save me. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Save me. Can you hear me pray out loud? We're so damn sorry. As you float away.
Float away. Right, so what did I miss? So there's an extra part of vocal 1 that goes somewhere, which I can give a good 11 plus. So that probably goes somewhere like that.
As you open mind's eyes, you say your eyes, you say your goodbyes. He warned you. Save me as you float away. Can you hear they pray? We are so damn sorry. Save me as you float away.
Oh, we've got Rich's vocals. Nearly forgot about that. Sorry, Richard. Separate tracks. So start with that one. Bacon to the left. So that goes over there.
Is all about.
There we go, line them up. And what's this? Float away.
We are so damn sorry.
Ooh,
Oh, damn sorry.
nice.
We are so damn sorry. We are so damn sorry.
And then there's consolidated piece 2. Is that one?
Back into the lane.
Okay, that's weird how vocal. Oh, hang on. That's weird. They're similar.
Back into the left. Back into the left. Back into the left. Go back.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's funny. People have different solutions. Like, Room's got a little M Audio Key Station Mini. I've currently got this. This is my small solution is my Studio Logic 61 key, which is a real pain because I wanted something smaller for my quarantine sessions, but this is literally the smallest keyboard that I have to hand. So I took this home and a MIDI converter and everything, which is a real pain. But I've got a fully weighted 88 key and a semi-weighted 88 M Audio one at the studio. But that's a studio. That's, you know, there was no way I was fitting them in with it. But also, somewhere down the back, where did it go? So for drums, I've got this Arturia Beat Step, which is much smaller and is really chunky and is also a sequencer, but it means I can do the proper bump bump. Really nice bump 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 stuff. So I'm probably going to have to finish off doing this later in the week. But yeah, I've got all my vocals in place for another song. So that was a real pain. Ex Cathedra, I've got a project for. Please Police, I've definitely got projects for. Takedown, for some reason I don't have a project for Takedown. What's even on some of these channels? It's weird, I've got renders of everything apart from the drums and no project file. But yeah, two songs on the album I'm going to be having to use the original drum stems for, which I'm really quite glad that I rendered out stems now, because whoa, that saved me at last minute, and it'll give me a real talking point on the full stream. Mastered stems for reference. Huh. Yeah, so 14th of July I was doing the masters for the album by the look of it. I'm glad I was being diligent. I've got this whole folder which I'll just quickly show you. This is what I backed up of the album, which is 12 songs, but it looks like I've consolidated everything. A lot of them have got loads of Reaper files in. MIDI has a Reaper MIDI. It has a MIDI score now. It does indeed. But I also have, this is my new folder. I've recorded a couple of acoustic guitars for one of the songs, which I recorded in today. I made DDP files for the masters. I've also got the advanced copy of the album, which is in both MP3 and iTunes M4A format. Then the mastering folder really helps me, because in there, a couple of folders down, every song I rendered out drums, bass, guitars, vocals, gang, other, don't quite know what they are. But yeah, did the same on every track. There's instrumental masters, there's instrumental what I called unmasters, which is an instrumental version of the song for TV and sync, without the limiting. There was, I don't know what preliminary masters are, I have no idea at this point. There's separates, which are what I used when we were doing promotional stuff. The master file will have been, yeah, there it is, just an entire solid wave file, which you could then, because there were transitions between songs where the CD would have stuff. 3 Sigma on the acoustics on Saturday. No, unfortunately not. I recorded the acoustics with this mic in here, which actually sounded pretty decent. I just made sure that nothing was making a noise, and recorded at the 12th fret, 12 inches away. It's meant to be a background thing, just blended in. It's certainly not meant to be the focus on this recording. Mastered stems for reference on one song. I must have been working on one particular song first. Don't know what unmasters are. And then I was using a Megadeth song as reference. This was 10 years ago. And all the Reaper files ever for the stems. So much information that is in one folder. When can we play Jackbox? Don't know. Like the ladies' vacuum. I don't know. So that's all I've got time for tonight, because I've got to go and do other things. But I'm glad that y'all had a good time hanging out. Might be able to do this again later in the week, but don't hold me to it, because I've got lots and lots on. But Saturday, the plan is get all this together into this big one project file and try and mix the entire album in a day on one long marathon, probably 8 or 10 hour stream. It's going to be insane. So thank you everybody for watching, and I hope you've had a decent time, and I'll see you all later in the week. Thanks everybody. See ya later.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, feel free to check out our other videos, as you can find here, or check out our Facebook and Twitter, or our Patreon page, which helps us to make more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.